Your Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Youssouf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Mr. José de Lima Massano, Minister of State of Economic Coordination of Angola, Your Excellency Robert Mambe, Prime Minister of Cote d'Ivoire, Your Excellency Luís Montenegro, Prime Minister of Portugal, Your Excellency Dick Shaw, Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Your Excellency Nina Larsson, Minister for Gender Equality of Sweden, representing the Prime Minister of Sweden, Your Excellency George Santos, Minister of Sea, also representing the Prime Minister of Cape Verde, all country representatives from the EU and AU, all the ministers from Angola represented here this morning, all ministers in the room, representatives of the diplomatic corps based in Angola, and those who traveled here to be at the business forum, and business leaders, all protocol observed. Good morning. Oh my goodness. Where I come from, we greet. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Margaret Celeste Gustavo. I'm the Executive for Competitiveness and Branding at the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board. And I have the pleasure of being your Director of Ceremonies and will be guiding you through the activities lined up for today. Let me begin by extending a warm and heartfelt welcome to all delegates joining us here in person this morning, as well as our guests who are connected online. As usual, while the virtual experience can never fully mirror being in the room, we are grateful for the technology that allows us all to participate and contribute. To our online participants, please feel free to send your questions to the app. We encourage you to engage fully. Put on your best virtual suit. We know what we dress like. We dress on top just so that we look nice on camera. Otherwise, we're still in our pajamas. So ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take off. Today marks the 8th edition of the EU-Africa Business Forum, following the 2022 edition in Brussels, which many of us will remember was held under COVID restrictions. And really it is wonderful this morning and refreshing to see the energy, the smile, and the enthusiasm, meeting of old friends that you haven't seen in a long time. The last time you met him was at the last business forum under COVID restrictions. So the enthusiasm filling this room is really amazing. A special word of appreciation to all the participants who traveled from across Africa and Europe to be here, and our sincere thanks to the Republic of Angola for hosting this year's EU-Africa Business Forum. This forum, ladies and gentlemen, Excellency, provides a unique platform to strengthen sustainable investment and trade between Africa and the EU. It stands apart because it brings together business and political leaders, policymakers, investors, and innovators from both continents. Truly a convergence of insight, expertise, and ambition. Now I want to draw your attention as well as Mr. Youssouf. They will officially open the event. After that, please stay for the high-level panel on investment in Africa, led by my fellow Namibian, Ms. Paulina Elago. This will be followed by a presentation on investing in young businesses in Africa. Green transition, transport and logistics, health and pharmaceuticals, as well as digital connection. As mentioned, we're joined by a large audience from Africa and Europe, and interpretation is available in French, Portuguese, English, and Arabic. Thank you, Jesus. I encourage you to make the most of today, engage, network, exchange ideas, and build partnerships. May this forum strengthen our shared efforts to sustainable investment and deepen trade relations between Africa and the
fellow leaders between Africa and Europe without you share skills and technologies across borders. You build the jobs of the future. And that's what the forum is about today. Building stronger ties between our industries, our businesses, but of course between our people. Since our last summit indeed in 2022, the global environment has become harsher, but the relationship between Africa and Europe has only grown closer. Europe is Africa's largest trading partner. 1/3 of Africa's total trade is with Europe. And we are Africa's largest investor with 240 billion euros in 2023 alone. But I think we can achieve much more. Is the moment to invest in Africa and to partner with Africa. This continent has everything it takes to deliver prosperity at home and to shape the global economy of tomorrow. It holds 60% of the world's best solar resources, 60%. And that build value locally rather than extracting it, that strengthen industrial capacity rather than create a dependence on imports, that boosts local jobs rather than outsourcing them. And this is the partnership that Europe is putting forward, strong and mutual beneficial, one that helps communities and industries on both continents to thrive. At the heart of this investment agenda is Global Gateway. When we launched it, we committed to investing 150 billion euros in Africa by 2027. And since then, we have mobilized investments of over 120 billion euros, so we are well on track to meet our targets. Global Gateway is not only about large-scale public investment. Its strength lies in governments, banks, and businesses from both countries pulling in the same direction. And that's why we're doubling down on efforts to partner with the private sector. And I see several of our European companies here today who are already engaged in this work. We have, over the last month, been listening to your ideas, and now we are taking steps forward to strengthen your investment. This October, for instance, we announced a new Global Gateway Investment Hub. This platform gives companies the opportunity to bring forward their own project ideas, mobilize support, engage in the implementation. This is a major step forward and responds to a request many of you made. You have said, involve us from the beginning on, and we have listened. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to highlight 3 additional ways how we're making it easier for businesses to invest and grow in Africa. The first is on finance. Africa has all the resources for growth. Natural resources in abundance, and a young and dynamic and talented population. What's needed now is capital for infrastructure, jobs, and innovation. Through Global Gateway, we are now working to de-risk, make finance affordable, and offer guarantees, so create a conducive environment. And this is how we can support investors to finance projects in more challenging markets, because they have the ideas, they have the projects. What they need is this conducive environment. Take digital connectivity, for example. High-speed internet only reaches 10% of Africans, and it is often unaffordable. But greater digital access starts a positive chain reaction, you know it all. Businesses grow faster. New and better jobs are created. Governments collect more taxes. Investors see stronger returns. And this is why Global Gateway focuses on mobilizing private investment in digital infrastructure. For instance, we are now expanding our data cables to East and West Africa and deploying the Medusa cable that connects Europe and North Africa. And with investments like these, the impact of every euro multiplies and everyone benefits. My second point is about entrepreneurs. Africa, as I said, has a young, dynamic population. It's a continent with talent, creativity, and drive. It has some of the highest rates of entrepreneurship in the world. So people are daring, they have courage, but most of these businesses fail within the first few years. And as one female entrepreneur in South Africa put it, she said it's the lack of access to infrastructure, access to global markets, and of course the lack of finance. So through Global Gateway, we are supporting to fill these gaps. Our support includes seed funding. It includes training and mentorship. We connect young businesses to local value chains and regional market, because when entrepreneurs are given the tools to scale, they create better jobs, greater investment, more innovation. And ladies and gentlemen, my third point is on regional integration. As a startup becomes a scale-up, it needs room to grow. It needs supplies, investors, and talent. It needs customers, new markets for expansion. When companies cannot sell or scale to neighboring countries, their growth stops at the border, costs rise, innovation stalls. But when companies can expand to other regions, integration becomes an engine for growth. Local businesses get bigger. Value chains create new jobs. And ultimately, industries become strong enough to compete on the global stage. And we in Europe, we know this by experience, because this is exactly what our European single market is all about. So that's why our union has supported the African Continental Free Trade Area since the beginning. And at this summit, we're boosting our support. The African Development Bank says that a true single market here could increase continental income by $450 billion in total. That means massive opportunities for Africa and for the world. Distinguished guests, excellencies, these are only a few steps we are taking together out of a long common road we are walking together. But it is time to take our partnership even farther and expand our business cooperation. So today we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you the sectors you want to focus on, the barriers you face, and I think I've mentioned some of them, but certainly not all of them. The opportunities you see ahead. Let's turn our ambition into action. Thank you very much, and I wish you a successful forum. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Your Excellency. 3 points that Her Excellency mentioned: finance, de-risking finance, financing, offering affordable finance, financing projects in Africa, and also through using digitalization to do so. The second point I heard was entrepreneurship. Yes, people in Africa are very daring and courageous, and that mentorship and training and creating access to markets really will be tools to scale business in Africa. And then regional integration, so very important. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And with Africa now being in the spotlight, and the EU, through Her Excellency, just showcasing what it is that the EU is planning to sort of develop and grow Africa, let us now hear from His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Youssouf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission on Africa's Vision and Ambition.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les Premiers ministres, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Excellences, Madame la Présidente de l'Union européenne, de la Commission de l'Union européenne, Mesdames et Messieurs, membres des communautés d'affaires, permettez-moi de vous souhaiter la bienvenue à ce forum d'affaires, l'occasion de rappeler l'importance du partenariat entre le secteur privé et le secteur public. Le continent africain a l'ambition de faire émerger un marché unique d'une valeur de 3,4 000 trillions de dollars. Le continent africain connaît une période en ce moment de transformation significative. Tout un système favorable aux investissements se met progressivement en place. La ZLECAf est en train de prendre son envol grâce à l'initiative du commerce guidé, dont 27 pays sont membres. Il y a 2 ans, son protocole sur les investissements a été adopté. L'Union africaine a également mis en place le cadre politique et juridique pour la promotion des start-up. Mesdames et Messieurs, l'agenda 2063 dispose des instruments tels que le programme d'entrepreneuriat de l'Union africaine. À cela s'ajoute la plateforme virtuelle sur les investissements. Le continent africain dispose par ailleurs du programme africain pour le développement des infrastructures, à travers des corridors logistiques, des réseaux énergétiques et un système bancaire financier performant en pleine évolution. Notre continent est particulièrement intéressé par des investissements dans le cadre du compact avec l'Afrique. C'est le message de fond que nous adressons à nos partenaires européens dans le cadre du compact dans sa phase 2. De plus en plus de pays africains améliorent leur écosystème d'investissement et préparent le terrain afin d'attirer davantage de capitaux européens. Cependant, l'Afrique a toujours prôné pour des partenariats plus équilibrés. Il est essentiel de réformer profondément l'architecture financière internationale. L'accès au marché des capitaux doit être transparent. Le coût du capital pour les emprunteurs africains n'est pas le même pour les autres. Il n'existe pour cela aucune raison économique valable pour une telle situation. L'Argentine, par exemple, reçoit plus de prêts concessionnels par les institutions de Bretton Woods que l'ensemble des États africains. Ce n'est pas normal. L'autre goulot d'étranglement sur lequel nous insistons beaucoup, c'est le fardeau de la dette. L'Afrique a adopté une position commune sur la soutenabilité de la dette. Il faudra nous écouter. La soutenabilité de la dette est une question essentielle pour l'avenir des économies africaines. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the digital divide is one of the daunting challenges of our time in our continent. It could be an opportunity to major transformation for African economies. However, we need more investment in innovation, technology, artificial intelligence, and in broader terms, in digital economy. Just to give you an example, China and the United States are investing hundreds of billions of dollars in developing artificial intelligence. We don't have that money on the continent, so we need your support. because developing together will certainly be more beneficial to all of us instead of the narrow-minded, positioning in terms of protectionism and also selfishness, if I can say that word. There is no doubt that the African continent will be the powerhouse of global growth in the coming decades. For that purpose, we need to invest together in those high value addition sectors. Madam, the President of the Commission said that the global gateway is really the future for that partnership between Africa and the European Union. We believe in that. But we also need more deliverables. We need more European companies, investors to come to the continent, because it will be first and foremost in the best interest of those companies to invest in Africa. With 2.5 billion inhabitants by 2050, most of them are young. The manpower is on the continent. The resources are in the continent. The future of the world is in this continent. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'd like to call upon His Excellency Mr. José de Lima Massano, the Minister of State for Economic Coordination of Angola. Bom dia, Ministro. Muito obrigado por nos receber aqui esta manhã. Cada vez que volto a Angola, reconheço que o país está ainda mais belo e em constante desenvolvimento. Parabéns, Angola.
I think that Margaret Gustavo, she deserves another round of applause. She dance fantastically in Portuguese. Well, Excelência Senhora Ursula von der Leyen, Excelência Senhor Mahmoud Ali Youssouf, Excelências, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, em nome de Sua Excelência o Presidente da República, João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, Presidente em exercício da União Africana, é com enorme prazer que vos dou as boas-vindas a Angola. É uma grande honra receber-vos na nossa capital, Luanda, para o Fórum Empresarial União Africana-União Europeia, que se realiza à margem da 7ª Cimeira União Africana-União Europeia, no ano em que celebramos 25 anos de parceria formal entre as duas uniões e em que Angola comemora 50 anos de independência nacional. Este Fórum de Luanda ocorre na sequência da definição da Visão Conjunta 2030, que resume o compromisso de construção de uma parceria estratégica assente na solidariedade, segurança, paz, desenvolvimento económico sustentável e prosperidade para presente e futuras gerações dos nossos dois continentes. Nestes 2 dias vamos continuar o diálogo e avançar na implementação dessa visão conjunta para ligar capital à oportunidade, ideias à inovação e ambição à implementação, particularmente nos setores da energia, infraestruturas, saúde e educação, corredores digitais, todos estes vitais para o bem-estar das nossas populações e que serão aprofundadas durante este encontro. Senhoras e senhores, a África é hoje um continente em transformação real, mas apesar dos avanços, o continente continua a enfrentar um déficit significativo no domínio das infraestruturas. Permanece entre os principais entraves ao crescimento económico, a redução das desigualdades regionais e o comércio intra-africano. E neste contexto que saudamos vivamente iniciativas como a Global Gateway, por assumirem compromissos firmes com a mobilização de recursos para o investimento em infraestruturas que criam oportunidades, congregam investidores, ampliam mercados e consolidam a integração económica de modo amplo e diversificado, como é o caso do corredor do Lobito, um eixo regional conectando Zâmbia, República Democrática do Congo e Angola, com potencial para movimentar mais de 20 milhões de toneladas de carga por ano, transformar a dinâmica comercial continental entre o próprio Atlântico e o interior, de criar novos corredores de desenvolvimento económico. Sabemos que são ainda muitos os desafios, mas também as oportunidades, pelo que é importante o engajamento direto da comunidade empresarial e financeira europeia e africana em parcerias mutuamente vantajosas, que nos permitam mais rapidamente responder às necessidades de um continente maioritariamente jovem, por natureza dinâmico e de reconhecido potencial no mercado global de cerca de 1,3 mil milhões de habitantes. Excelências, senhoras e senhores, Angola está a escrever a sua narrativa económica, transcrevendo para uma economia mais diversificada e integrada, regional e internacionalmente. E afirmamos, por isso, o nosso interesse na cooperação internacional, no investimento conjunto e no diálogo construtivo. Continuaremos empenhados em construir um futuro melhor para os nossos cidadãos e para acrescentar valor como um ator regional e global, estando certos que refletimos também aqui o desejo e o percurso dos países representados neste importante fórum empresarial. Uma vez mais, muito obrigado por estarem conosco e desfrutem do calor humano e acolhedor de todos os angolanos. Muito obrigado.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could please rise. I believe we have Her Excellency, Her Excellencies, and His Excellency. They will be leaving now for other engagements, as I mentioned earlier on. So thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Thank you so much for coming and joining us this morning. We wish you well for the rest of the day. You may be seated. Well, now that we've had, the tone was set, we've heard what the ambitions are from Africa as well as the EU, and we're going to have a discussion, a few presentations given by three large development finance institutions. We are curious to hear how they, as financial investors, facilitating investments, see the way forward to scale up investment by AFR and the EU companies in critical sectors for both Africa and the EU. So I want to welcome Mrs. Odile Renaud-Basso. She's the President of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Mr. Sidi Ould-Tah, President of the African Development Bank Group, as well as Mr. Ambroise Fayole, Vice President of the European Investment Bank. They will each do a short presentation just to give us an oversight in terms of finance, how finance is being generated, how we will de-risk, etc., in order to grow the investments and trade between Africa and the EU. So I'm going to call on Mrs. Odile Renaud-Basso. Give her a warm round of applause.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's really an honor for me to be with you today at this EU-African Union Business Forum, a platform that embodies partnership, ambition, and shared responsibility. Prosperity is not only a goal, it is a strategic imperative for both Africa and Europe. And the EU joint vision for 2030, anchored in the 150 billion euro global gateway investment package, lays out an ambitious path towards a prosperous and sustainable future for African and European citizens. The EBRD, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, is proud to be a strategic implementing partner here. We share the conviction that economic transformation and shared prosperity cannot happen without sustainable private sector financing and delivery. African countries themselves are placing the private sector at the heart of their development strategies and actively seeking investment. This is where we collectively must rise to the challenge. Africa's private sector development needs and opportunities are vast, yet bankable projects remain limited. The EBRD's mandate and business model are designed to expand the range of deals to invest in, create new markets, and crowd in investors. This is what we do best, building confidence, reducing risk, and enable private capital to flow where it's needed most. The EBRD works across 3 continents, including Africa, with an overriding focus on the private sector, which represents between 75 and 80% of our annual investment. And we already have a strong track record in North Africa. 22 billion euros invested in nearly 400 projects over just 1 decade. And we are expanding in new markets: Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, and we hope soon Ghana. Our priorities align closely with national strategies and the Global Gateway agenda, including expanding renewable energy and energy access, supporting SMEs and financial inclusion, strengthening sustainable agriculture and economic diversification, investing in digital infrastructure and innovation, developing local capital markets. These are among our top priorities. Another vital element in our delivery and hopefully our success, and this is a tribute to my peers on this session, is how we are aiming and have been able to build cooperative relationships with other development partners, working closely with institutions such as African Development Bank and EIB. We are a dedicated member of Team Europe. And for example, over the past year alone, the EBRD has invested 1.3 billion euros in renewable in North Africa, of which 700 million with EU support, and therefore, as a key delivery for Team Europe. These investments are creating close to 3 gigawatts of renewable generation capacity, supporting jobs and increasing access to affordable electricity. To achieve these ambitions, we offer a broad suite of instruments: debt, equity, and guarantee, tailored to diverse project needs. We deploy innovative risk mitigation tools, such as our Green Economy Financing Facility. There, for example, we help local banks finance green technologies through an unfunded risk participation coupled with technical assistance. Our capacity is further enhanced by donor funding and EU guarantees, which de-risk investments and mobilize private capital. We also provide local currency financing and work to strengthen capital markets. For example, in Morocco, a few years ago, we supported the city of Agadir's local currency bond issuance, providing resources for green and inclusive urban development. Financing is essential, but it's not alone. It's not enough. It must be paired with policy reform and an enabling environment. And the EBRD combines investment with policy dialogue and technical support to reinforce our impact by creating an enabling environment for sustainable private sector development. Let me take the example of Egypt's renewable sector. We've been supporting the Egyptian government in meeting their renewable energy targets through policy dialogue, technical advice and investment through a country-led platform, the NWEFE program. And today, Egypt is retiring 5 gigawatts of inefficient power and adding 10 gigawatts of solar and wind capacity by 2028. Another example, extremely important, is support for human capital. Through our private sector inclusion model, we integrate pathways for young people and women entrepreneurs and skill developments into our investments, because growth must be inclusive. With our distinctive shareholding structure, so an EU-held majority combined with membership from its countries of operation, the EBRD embodies in itself and in its governance the principles of multilateralism, acting as a true bridge between Europe and partner countries in Africa, and fostering cooperation built on shared ownership and mutual trust. We help bridge the gap between EU public institutions and economic operators by being close to the ground and understanding the realities of what it means to invest. So we welcome the European Commission initiative of the Global Gateway Investment Hub. Together with other implementing partners, we have contributing to the designing process, committed to additionality, impact and streamlined processes. And we look forward to exploring the potential for cooperating with the African Union's Africa Virtual Investment Platform. In a world undergoing profound transformation, Africa and Europe can create an inclusive, sustainable and transformative growth. The EBRD will invest, partner and deliver on this shared vision. Together, we can turn ambition into action and opportunity into prosperity for all our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Basu. I'm going to call on Mr. Sidi Ota, President of the African Development Bank, on their views in terms of financing, as was mentioned by Her Excellency.
Excelências, ministros, distintos líderes do setor privado africano e europeu, senhoras e senhores, permitam-me, antes de tudo, expressar os meus sinceros agradecimentos e a minha profunda gratidão à Sua Excelência, o Presidente João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, Presidente da República da Angola e Presidente da União Africana. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est un honneur de prendre part à cet important forum au moment où le partenariat entre l'Afrique et l'Europe s'apprête à embrasser une ambition renouvelée. Ce forum d'affaires ne se limite pas à un simple cadre d'échange, il nous offre l'occasion d'avancer un agenda commun de croissance, de stabilité et d'opportunité fondé sur le respect mutuel et un objectif partagé. Dans un monde qui évolue à une vitesse remarquable, les choix que nous faisons ensemble influenceront non seulement l'avenir de nos deux continents, mais également la trajectoire de l'économie mondiale. L'Afrique est en passe de devenir le prochain moteur majeur d'investissement et de croissance au niveau mondial. Avec une économie évaluée à 3 300 milliards de dollars, appelée à doubler d'ici 2040, et la plus grande population en âge de travailler, une force de travail qui sera, à partir de 2035, supérieure à la Chine et à l'Inde combinées, le potentiel est immense. La transition énergétique ouvre des opportunités sans précédent. Plus de 2,8 milliards de dollars d'infrastructures vertes, des ressources renouvelables de classe mondiale et des minéraux critiques essentiels aux batteries, aux véhicules électriques et aux technologies industrielles avancées. Parallèlement, la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, la ZLECAf, jette les bases d'un marché intégré majeur. L'Afrique est l'endroit où les rendements à long terme rencontrent une valeur stratégique globale. Mais l'existence d'opportunités ne suffit pas. Les entrepreneurs africains et européens nous le disent clairement. L'Afrique ne manque pas d'opportunités, mais de structures d'investissement bancables. Ils demandent de la prévisibilité, une meilleure protection contre les risques d'échange et les risques politiques, une préparation plus rapide des projets, des garanties évolutives et des mécanismes de financement mixtes. Par-dessus tout, ils veulent des institutions de confiance capables de coordonner la chaîne d'investissement. En tant que président du groupe de la Banque africaine de développement, depuis le 1er septembre de cette année, c'est précisément là où je veux mener le groupe à travers les 4 points cardinaux. Le premier point cardinal a trait à la mobilisation massive de ressources financières pour financer le développement de l'Afrique. Le deuxième point cardinal est relatif à la réforme de l'architecture financière africaine pour plus de synergie et d'interaction entre les acteurs financiers africains, une plus grande mobilisation de l'épargne africaine. Troisième point cardinal est relatif à notre démographie. Nous devons utiliser notre démographie pour faire de l'Afrique la prochaine puissance économique mondiale. Le quatrième point cardinal est relatif à la construction d'infrastructures résilientes et la transformation sur le sol du continent africain de nos matières premières. Au centre de nos priorités figure la modification du profil des risques de l'investissement en Afrique, afin que les capitaux puissent circuler avec plus de confiance et de rapidité. Nous bâtirons pour cela le premier écosystème continental de garantie, conçu pour les chaînes de valeur et les programmes nationaux, et non pour des projets isolés. Nous remplacerons l'actuel système d'instruments morcelés par un système cohérent qui crée de la prévisibilité, protège les investissements et accélère les investissements transformateurs. Une autre priorité est de constituer un pipeline à la hauteur des ambitions africaines. Les investisseurs veulent des projets bien préparés, bancables et de grande envergure. Nous œuvrerons pour réorienter nos opérations afin de soutenir le développement du pipeline de concept à la clôture dans les secteurs souverains et privés. Nous allons aussi renforcer notre écosystème de préparation de projets afin de garantir des études plus solides, un meilleur cadrage et des délais plus prévisibles. La nouvelle architecture financière africaine vise à doter l'Afrique des instruments financiers et de la coordination nécessaire afin de permettre de mutualiser la puissance financière africaine, coordonner le financement climatique et infrastructurel, réduire la prime de risque systémique du continent et déployer de manière stratégique les garanties et les capitaux hybrides et les titrisation. L'Europe est au cœur de cet effort. Les pays européens détiennent plus de la moitié des droits de vote non régionaux de la Banque africaine de développement. Ils constituent aussi l'ossature du Fonds africain de développement dont ils sont les principaux donateurs. La Commission européenne a déjà fourni plus d'1 milliard d'euros de subventions via notre accord cadre financier au bénéfice de 200 millions de personnes. Nous travaillons en étroite collaboration avec la Banque européenne de reconstruction et de développement. La présidente Odile vient de le dire. Et nous travaillons aussi avec la Banque européenne d'investissement, et je suis sûr que mon ami Fayol en dira quelques mots tout à l'heure. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me speak plainly. Africa must industrialize. New regulatory frameworks, from the Critical Raw Materials Act to the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism and Global Gateway, will profoundly shape this partnership. They can accelerate shared industrialization. The opportunity is to turn them into catalysts for joint investment, deeper integration, and transformation. If you align our ambitions, Africa and Europe can build far more than trade flows, gigafactories, battery and electric vehicle ecosystem, agro-industrial platforms, and green hydrogen value chains, alongside strong digital integration and regional corridors that define future supply chains. This is a moment to embrace a new model, made in Africa with Europe. Now allow me to turn to a pillar that is absolutely central to Africa's investment future, the African Development Fund, and in particular, the success of its 17th replenishment. Without a strong replenishment, Africa will simply not have the concessional resources required to deploy the instruments that make private sector and private investment possible. The instruments that de risk, that stabilize, and that turn opportunity into bankable projects. Europe has historically been the backbone of the African Development Fund. Your leadership, your consistency, and your confidence in this institution have shaped the fund's impact for over half a century. And your leadership in ADF 17 will directly determine Africa's capacity to expand its pipeline, strengthen its guarantee mechanism, and deepen its private sector engagement. ADF 17 is therefore much more than a replenishment cycle. It is the fuel for the private sector transformation we are discussing in this forum, and the foundation upon which risk mitigation, infrastructure investment, and new industries will stand. Supporting ADF 17 means supporting a more competitive, more resilient, and more prosperous Africa. Senhoras, senhores, esta reunião representa uma oportunidade importante para reforçarmos a cooperação entre a África e a Europa, promovermos investimentos produtivos e criarmos novas oportunidades para os nossos povos. Acredito fermamente que o diálogo franco e o trabalho conjunto nos permitirão avançar com confiança rumo a futuro de paz, progresso e prosperidade partilhada. Muito obrigado.
Wow. I've never been to a place where somebody speaks all languages to cater for everyone in one moment. But thank you very much, sir. I want to call upon Mr. Ambrose Fayoli, the Vice President of the European Investment Bank, to now deliver his remarks.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, bonjour à tous. C'est un honneur pour moi d'être ici aujourd'hui et je remercie l'Union africaine et l'Union européenne pour avoir invité la Banque européenne d'investissement aux côtés de la EBRD et de la Banque africaine de développement. et aussi aux côtés de ce dynamique écosystème africain d'entreprises qui est si impressionnant. Le partenariat entre l'Afrique et l'Europe est central pour la mission de la BEI qui est active en Afrique depuis 1960. Dans la dernière décennie, nous avons investi 20 milliards d'euros et mobilisé plus de 50 milliards d'euros en Afrique, la moitié en faveur du secteur privé. Et en 2024, l'Afrique a été le récipient de 3 milliards d'euros de la part de la BEI, soit plus de 40% des engagements que nous avons pris en dehors d'Europe. Through EIB Global, we finance projects that deliver impact, sustainable growth, employment, and better living conditions. Our new strategy strengthens partnerships, reflecting our belief and prosperity and security are shared goals for Europe and Africa. As Team Europe, we have exceeded the 300 billion euros of investment targets for Global Gateway strategy, and we are now committing to surpassing 400 billion by 27. The EIB is on track as part of Team Europe to mobilize 100 billion of this. To achieve this, we are scaling up our financing tools and accelerating collaboration. The key word here is together. Together with the European Commission, we are pledging to finance more than 2 billion euros investment in renewable energy in Africa in the next 2 years. Actually following what we have already done last year in Cabo Verde to expand wind power with a loan from 39 million euros. Together with the European Commission, the African Development Bank and KfW, we are running Boost Africa to help fast-growing, innovative companies to scale. Together with leading African financial institutions, such as EcoBank, or Morocco's Banque Centrale Populaire, or Mauritania's Alasmana, we support small businesses in Africa, in particular, to help financing SMEs that are led by women or young people. To cover the various segments of African markets, we are using our broad financing tools, which are from sovereign lending, corporate lending, SME support through financial intermediaries, to equity investments through funds combined with blending and technical assistance. On the continent, our focus is on enabling infrastructure. Health, water, energy, sustainable agriculture, transport, and digital inclusion, alongside support for the local private sector. An illustration is last week's signature in South Africa of a loan of 350 million euros with Transnet, the state-owned transport and logistic company. Supported by a grant from the European Union, this major investment will help South Africa move towards a low-carbon, climate-resilient and economy as part of the Just Energy Transition Partnership, the JETP. This investment, aligned with the EU Global Gateway strategy, will finance the renewal and rehabilitation of transport ports and freight railway infrastructure. It will allow also to support the development of new assets critical to building a green hydrogen value chain and facilitate a shift to cleaner modes of transport. Eventually, it will actually help strengthen the country's competitiveness and contributing to job creation. And we are also engaged here in the region, in the Lobito Corridor, a key project for regional economic integration. Let me close by two messages. One, financing climate adaptation is a priority. EIB has pledged to double its adaptation financing to 30 billion euros by 2030. It focuses on water, cities, agriculture, and vulnerable regions. Our projects range from forestry in Côte d'Ivoire to clean cooking solutions in East Africa, from sustainable cocoa to sustainable aviation fuels, on which we will have an announcement today. Second, investing in people is essential for sustainable growth. In Rwanda, we financed the African Center of Excellence for Digital Education. In Benin, we support the technical secondary schools. Here in Angola, we have invested 50 million euros in vaccination campaign for fighting against HPV. Clearly, Africa and Europe share a common destiny. By joining forces and investing in concrete high-impact projects, we can build a future based on shared prosperity, stability, and sustainability, and we are very proud at EIB to be part of this momentum. Let me finish by saying that as this forum is an amazing opportunity for networking, I encourage all of you to meet our EIB team present at the Business Forum to explore new ways of cooperation. Thank you very much.